This film, shot secretly by a West German television crew on Tuesday, shows one of the Soviet convoys on the move in northern Iran. The convoys were first spotted by United States satellites on Monday, moving across 3 of the mountain passes leading from the Soviet Union. The Soviet foreign minister has defended the incursions and has accused the United States of deliberately prompting last week's coup in Iran.
Tonight's headlines.
The United States has hinted it may send troops to the Middle East if the Russians don't move their forces out of Iran. The Prime Minister has joined the chorus of Western leaders calling for immediate withdrawal and has spoken of a serious threat to world peace. 4 people were killed today on the M6 motorway in Staffordshire when their car was in collision with a heavy tanker. The accident happened at the junction with...
Streaking you as this.
There's been a serious incident involving a United States warship in the waters off the coast of Iran. No further details are given in the story, attributed to the paper's defense correspondent. However, one rumor being heard increasingly in the capital this morning says the vessel is a US submarine that has disappeared whilst on routine patrol in the area.
BBC News at 8 o'clock. The Soviet Union has protested strongly to the United States about what it calls dangerous provocations by American warships in the Gulf of Oman yesterday. This follows an incident in which serious damage was caused to the Soviet cruiser Kirov when she was in collision with the US destroyer Callahan.
...to Iran, when she sank last Tuesday with the loss of all hands. After paying tribute to her 127 officers and men, the president went on to say that he held the Soviet Union solely responsible for their deaths and for the vessel's disappearance.
The unprovoked attack on our submarine and the move into Iran are the actions of a reckless and warlike power. I have to warn the Soviets in the clearest possible terms that they risk taking us to the brink of an armed confrontation with incalculable consequences for all mankind.
Issued a short time ago by the Pentagon in Washington, the United States has accused the Soviet Union of moving nuclear warheads into their new base at Mashhad in northern Iran. According to the American spokesman, the warhead...
Hey, I'm watching that.
aboard 2 giant Antonov transport planes late yesterday afternoon and were immediately moved undercover into temporary hangars.
See that? See that thing about Far East and it goes and turns its over?
Far East? Wow, what's going on there?
Iran. Americans have just said Russian.
Iran? That's not the Far East, you pellet. That's the Middle East. China, Hong Kong, that's the Far East.
So what? It's far enough, isn't it?
It's at Near East myself. Scarborough and Skegness.
NATO's position on the United States' action in sending its task force...
That's right, you know, it's getting serious.
Well, there's no we can do about it, is there?
Arriving here in Brussels a short time ago, NATO's Secretary-General said he...
...of support for the United States government. The statement, just released from Downing Street, condemns what it calls reckless Soviet actions, which can only worsen an already grave situation.
There's been no response from the Soviet government as yet to the United States ultimatum delivered to Moscow last night. The American note calls for joint withdrawal of all US and Soviet forces from Iran by noon on Sunday. However, NATO observers in West Germany have reported increasing build-ups of Warsaw Pact troops and vehicles at points along the central frontier this morning. The Ministry of Defense has announced it's sending more troops to Europe to reinforce the British commitment to NATO. The first contingents left RAF Brize Norton this morning. It's been marked by a number of demonstrations up and down the country, reflecting support for and against the government's decision to reinforce Europe. Although most of these passed off without incident, police made a number of arrests for disorderly conduct at rallies in the North and Midlands.
The government has taken control of British Airways and all cross-channel ferries. They say it's a temporary step to help move troops to Europe. Thousands are stranded at Heathrow and Gatwick. And the Royal Navy is to guard the North Sea oil rigs. The MOD says it's a prudent precautionary measure.
Would they be winning? What would they have conquered? Well, I'll tell you. All major centres of population and industry will have been destroyed.
Industry? What industry? We ain't got no industry in Sheffield!
Yes, and if the money...
Since the expiry of the American ultimatum to the Soviet Union at noon yesterday, there have been intense diplomatic efforts to mediate between the two countries. There is still no information from Iran itself. No news teams have been allowed in or out of the country since phone and telex links were cut on Friday evening. There's been a run on tinned food, sugar, and other storable items, which is causing shortages in some areas. Spokesman for the main supermarket chain said that panic buying is unnecessary. Fuel shortages are hindering resupply in some areas, but overall there is no shortage of stocks. They urge the public to calm down, be patient.
They've started fighting, Mum. Who has? The Americans and the Russians. It's just been on the news. My dad says you've got to come home now. Come on.
Hey, you haven't paid for them things!
In response to today's news of the outbreak of hostilities between vessels of the United States and Soviet navies, a special session of Parliament has this evening passed an Emergency Powers Act. Local authorities have been given the power to suspend certain peacetime functions and to requisition premises and materials for civil defense purposes. A government spokesman said that this was a precautionary move only. It was not a cause for alarm.
There's growing evidence overnight from scientists and observers in many countries that there have been 2 nuclear explosions in the Middle East. There's no official confirmation of what has happened.
How are things going?
We're doing our best.
In the last few days, emergency headquarters like this have been hastily improvised up and down the country in the basements of town halls and civic centres.
If anyone dies while you are kept in your fallout room, move the body to another room in the house. Label the body with name and address, and cover it as tightly as possible in polythene, paper, sheets or blankets. If, however, you have had a body in the house for more than 5 days, and if it is safe to go outside, then you should bury the body for the time being in a trench or cover it with earth and mark the spot of the burial.
Look, I'm using traffic wardens already.
I don't know how many make it.
All right, then I'll have to swear.
Many of these officers have had no training at all. Some have learnt of their emergency role only in the last few days, and almost all are unsure of their exact duties. It's 8:30 a.m., 3:30 in the morning in Washington. Over the past 4 days, neither the President nor his senior staff will have had more than a few hours' rest. This is when they may be asleep. This is when Western response will be slowest.
Right, good. Attack warning. Is it for real? Attack warning, it's for bloody real. Is it? Right, get to your stations. Come on, put yourself. Get that generator going. Shut the doors. I want, as soon as you can, every single scrap of information you've got on casualties first. I must have that.
Now get your heads down.
Look, we can't sell you anything, Bill. Come on, quick, get down!
These have gone.
Everything's dead.
Why didn't you pull the bloody aerial out? Get the standbys working. That. Come on.
You have lost your question privileges, Pang.
Jesus Christ, they've done it.
Bill, put this out, Alice!
Build it up!
This one's on finning layout.
How big? Groundburst, port three. What was the other one? Hang on, there's something on the airport, I think.
Absolutely diabolical. And something beautiful happened. Just a funny little joke, nothing serious.